This guy takes on another idea.
I'll
tell you another time.
All right, Boker Tov. Today's stuff is Pei Aleph 81. We're a bit behind, so let's get moving. Okay, the Mishnah dealt with a get that was written with the wrong text, where the very consequential that all these negative consequences, particularly to the woman, etc. And then it moved on to a more minor type of a mistake to a bigger one, which was a difference in the husband's or wife's names or the locations, which said that even the rabbis would agree that it would have all of these huge consequences, which leads, of course, to a great hakpada in the writing of the names of a get. Okay, now it says we can pick up in the middle of the daf here, the two dots. This is the case where it has nothing to do with writing a wrong get. Actually, another case where it seems that the woman is totally innocent, that there was a case where there was no yibum done because one of the co-wives was an erva, was forbidden to the brother-in-law, and the other one went and remarried, and then it turned out that the first wife was not really married to the brother, and then again all these negative consequences. So the Gemara says, Nisu'in zinulo. It's only a problem if that co-wife goes in and remarries, not if she just has sex with somebody. Lema tehavi tifta to Rav Hamnuna. Let's say this is a challenge on Rav Hamnuna. Damar Rav Hamnuna shomer yabam shezinta, because Rav Hamnuna says a woman who is awaiting yibum or chalitza, what this woman retroactively we discovered she was, because we found out that her co-wife wasn't really her co-wife. So if she went ahead and she had sex with another man, asura liyibuma, she's now forbidden to the brother-in-law. You can no longer do yibum, and we are assuming that we would only apply all of these negative consequences if she did an act that would have made her forbidden to the brother, to the brother-in-law, right? If it was an act of real consequence. But if she did an act that would not have that consequence of making her forbidden to the brother, it wouldn't have all of these ramifications. So the Gemara is saying, according to Rav Hamnuna, even not being married to another man, even just having sex with another man has the same consequence. So why don't these has the same severity? So why don't these consequences apply? So the Gemara says, lo nisu lizinu, even though the Mishnah says they married another man, it would be true even if they had sex with another man. The high did not get nisu. Why does it say they married? It's talking in a clean language. It means, getting married is a nice way. Like when they sleep together, you don't mean sleep together, right? Married means you have sex, but it's even without getting married. What? Right. All right, that's true. The Ikadami, some say Nisu Huadin Lazina, that there was another version that started like, married, presumably that means also sex, right? That would also have all these negative consequences. Let's say this supports Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna, Shomeres Yavam Shezinsa Asur Liyipima, that even if she does have sex with another man, she's forbidden to the brother-in-law, and therefore that's why all these negative consequences would apply even if she just had sex. So the Gemara says, Nisu Dafka. No. The mission should be read Dafka only if she married. Okay, Mishum de Michlafa B'Yishalach Baila Limdinas Hayam, and because then that case of hearing that the husband died and remarried, can easily be confused with the case of hearing the husband died and then remarrying and then the husband turns up alive, etc. Meaning that's the paradigm case why all of these things are usher, right? It's sort of that case of you heard the husband died, you remarried, and now actually, particularly this case where it's actually was a death and there was some consequence and she remarried, some event, it wasn't a get. Anyway, so that's the model case. And that model case is primarily one in where the woman remarries, not in where the woman has sex. And therefore, we're really only going to apply it in that case, and we're not going to apply it in the case where she just had sex with another man. Okay, moving on.
In the end, we don't know.
In the end, we don't know. And a little more nuanced than that, but we don't have time. Okay, now, Hakonis is Yivimta. The other case is also one where she was innocent, where this guy actually did yibum with one of the wives, and so the other wife felt she was free, and she went off and then married somebody else. And then it turned out that the wife that the man did yibum with wasn't his brother's wife because she was an illness or whatever. But tzricha, you need both cases. We had just said the first case about the case of her co-wife was an erva. There, I would say that she's maybe we shouldn't have all these negative consequences because no act of yibum or chalitza was ever done, everybody just walked away. So maybe there it's like, there's a little more responsibility in checking out that you're doing the right thing. Because it's like we're all just going to walk away. Like before you just walk away from the situation, check it out a little bit more.
So, I mean, check it out. Check it out. She's a demon.
I don't know. Maybe you should have waited. I have a very hard time understanding this. But when an act of evil was actually done, like what are people supposed to think? We did everything right. He did Yibum with my co-wife. Well, we're done, right? So in that case, maybe we should everybody should be free from negative consequences. So maybe we wouldn't have these negative consequences. Maybe it's the opposite. Here, you knew that one of you had to have Yibum or Chalitza. And therefore, maybe there was more of a sense that when you did something wrong, even if it was unaware and if it was in hindsight and so on, there's a sense of all these negative consequences because you knew you started by being obligated in Yibum or Chalitza. But in the case where the wife was an erva, the co-wife, the Lo Ranya Kameh, that you started by assuming there's no obligation to begin with. Amalo, maybe you should not see the having married the wrong person, in the same type of sense of violation. I mean, it was in hindsight and they didn't know at the time, and people didn't even assume there was an obligation at all. So you need to say both cases. Again, the problem is so it still doesn't answer the basic question, which is okay, but bottom line is everybody is innocent here, and it does seem very overboard. I really can't answer that. Okay, Kosam Sofer. Now we're going to get to the last part of the mission, which is easier to understand. That the Sofer wrote a receipt for the woman and a get for the man, and gave them the wrong documents, and then they exchanged the wrong documents. So obviously she isn't Megureshes, but comes along. Who is it? Who is it? Comes along Rabbi Linzer, and he says no. That's only if you find out the problem immediately. If after she married another man, then you say, let me look at your get, and you see it's a receipt, you are not in a position, the first husband, of making problems. Okay, who knows what happened between then and now? Okay, because I'm so for else to get leash, if you found it immediately, fine, it's a problem. But after a while, it's not a problem. What's immediately and what's after a while? If after the get was given and the receipt was given, and then they're there and they're still working out details and sitting in the same room, they're in the same sort of conversation, and then you look at the documents, that's right away. Okay. Once that meeting broke, any moment after that meeting broke, that's already anything after the meeting broke, we can't assume we know what happened.
So he essentially writes halacha away.
What?
So he essentially writes this halacha away.
What do you mean? That's Rabbi Linzer.
No, I mean, of course you're going to be checking at the time. You got the right documents.
Really?
So really, you think you were checking?
No, because when the way maybe, but Rabbi
Linzer, your contract, right?
You would think, but when Rabbi Linzer contrasts it to he doesn't have the ability to make the second guy lose out. If anything, I would say that the simple sense of you'll see the contrast because the Mishnah refers to a case where she's married already to a second guy. So this says as soon as they leave the room, it's all you can no longer challenge it. As long as she has not married a second guy, that's still the same time. So it could be 10 years later. And as long as you haven't married the second guy, then you can raise problems. Okay, Nises, once she married the second guy, because he's picking up on the language of the Mishnah that you can't make the second guy lose his rights, or whatever. You can't destroy a new marriage based on this claim. So the Gemara says, Tana, let's take a look at the Mishnah. The first husband cannot say after a while, oh look, you only have a receipt, you have a receipt, you don't have a get. There was obviously a problem. He can't do that and make the second guy. I mean, it's also her, but destroy the second marriage as a result. So the Gemara says, there's a second guy because the problem is, there's already a second marriage. Anything less than a second marriage, he actually would be able to raise a challenge. But the Gemara says, Elu Shmuel my shady. So according to Shmuel, what does it mean? You can't make the second guy lose out. So the Gemara says, Shmuel says, Zechut haru'uyah l'sheni. No. It doesn't mean there has to be a second guy. It means once she leaves the room, she has a right to remarry. And once she has a right to remarry, you cannot undo that right. As long as they're in the same room, things aren't seen as final. But once that meeting breaks and she leaves the room, she has a right. And now, just because you show some wrong document after the fact, we don't know exactly what happened between then and now. Okay, very good. So now we continue with top. Now we're back to where we should be, Pei Aleph. And this hopefully go a little faster. Let's take a look. Kosav l'garish es ishto. You wrote a get to divorce your wife. V'nimlach, and then you changed your mind. Okay. So Beikshama Yomi paslamina kihuna. So, because you went to a sofer and said, please write a get for my wife, that created, oh, did you hear? Reuven's divorcing his wife. What? Did you hear? Reuven's divorcing his wife. He got the sofer. Anyway, so people then, the word gets out, okay? And therefore, there's this, that even if in the end you didn't divorce your wife, and then let's say the guy dies, okay, people maybe think, oh, I thought I heard she was a grusha. Didn't you hear that he divorced her? And therefore, because there is a little bit of that rumor, impression, or whatever, that she might be a grusha, he says, we're going to have to not let her marry a Kohen. Now, that's like terrible. It's like the opposite, right? And we're going to get into that in the Gemara. If there's like Lashon Hara, what you want to do, or not Lashon Hara, whatever. Anyway, if there's bad thing, if people are saying inaccurate things, you want to correct it, not reinforce it. But there's partly it has to do with a question about how successful you think you can be, right? So once an impression is created, Rabbi Weiss is fond of saying the only difference between perception and reality is that it's easier to change reality. So once the perception is created, you might not be able to undo it. And then what's going to happen? She's going to marry a Kohen, and people are going to say, Kohen married a
Meaning after the guy died.
After the guy dies.
After the
guy dies.
But they don't see you coming back. Like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, he's Megarisher, but then they see her going home. And then they're like that.
Right, so that's obviously an obvious point. I mean, it would make a lot more sense if this was like the guy on his deathbed, right? If it was 10 years later and they've been living together, like how do people think she's a grusha? You're absolutely right. So Beis Shammai is super, super machmir, but once there's this little whiff of her being a grusha, then we don't want that to now, now she's going to marry a Kohen after this, after her husband dies, and people want to think the kids are halalim or whatever, so we have to just like go with that. And Michael is, of course, correct. I mean, my God, all he did was he wrote something. And number two is, what if they're living together afterwards? So Beit Hillel says, let's take a look at what Beit Hillel says. Beit Hillel omrim, no, the opposite. Even if he gave her a get on a condition, he gave her the get. Okay, but it was conditional. The lo nasa t'nai, and the condition wasn't satisfied. Lo paslamina kahuna. So that you could say, well, I mean, oh my God, everybody thinks she's divorced. They saw him give the get, right? And Beis Hillel could be talking about the opposite extreme. And he died 5 minutes later. So everybody assumes she's divorced, right? No, if she's not divorced, she's not divorced. You don't have to live with a consequence of something that's not a reality. Okay, now, by the way, there actually is cases in the Gemara, which are interesting, not discussed here, of cases called Reach HaGet, which is like I used the phrase before, maybe consciously or unconsciously, the whiff, right? So if it has a whiff of a get, there are cases where we actually do say that she's pasul mina kahuna. If it was a get pasul, but it was close enough to being a get. Okay, so that's interesting, right? Because Beit Hillel seems to take those approaches. No, like if it ain't to get, it ain't to get. We're not going to make her suffer the consequences. All right, let's take a look at the Gemara.
So according to Beit Shammai, is it really dafka this? Like, let's say just a rumor. They'll give
let's take
marital problems.
Right. So let's take a look at the Gemara. Okay. So the question was sent to Shmuel. Let our master teach us. Because of get the ishto. A rumor is in town that so and so a Kohen wrote a get for his wife, but they're still living together. Mahu. So notice this wrote a get for his wife, and they're still living together. That's your case, Michael. So people would say, okay, so he didn't give it. Okay, but that's not. But if that's true, people aren't necessarily giving. There's not necessarily talking. They're talking because obviously there's some question whether he did give it, and then she still is living with him, which means that he would be a machzir grushaso. Right? Everybody understand? Not only is he now a problem of a Kohen living with a grusha, it's also a problem about a Kohen living, about anybody living with his wife. Well, not actually, because if he didn't marry another man, it would be a problem. Okay. Anyway, it's a Kohen living with a grusha. He made his wife a grusha, now he's living with her. Okay. That's possibly what that rumor is about. I'm sorry. So he said, so he said that Teitze, they need to get divorced, but we need to investigate the facts. Okay. It's interesting because in the past we had, that's true. But in the past we also had Teitze Vadar Talmud. Because when you have to analyze the halacha, I have to, then you have to learn it more. Here, when you have to look at the facts, you have to inspect the facts. B'dika, not Talmud. Anyway, so what do you have to inspect? So anyway, the Gemara doesn't go that way, and it sort of takes the b'dikas. Maybe we have to just decide what the halacha is, although I think it means we have to decide what the facts is. Anyway, what does that mean? If the question is whether, when there's a rumor, do we basically try to dispel the rumor, or do we go with it? Again, now why would we not try to dispel it? So Rashi says again, it just shows the power of perception. Here there's a rumor that this woman, that this woman is divorced and she's living with a Kohen, and we're going to go and say, no, we want everybody to know it's a false rumor, da 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 da. So it could be we're very successful, or could be everybody says, aha, you see that? He's got the basin in his pocket, right? He's living with this divorcee, and they're now coming ahead and they're coming to his defense, right? So if people really believe in the rumor, you're just going to get yourself implicated if you try to change it. So are we trying to be mevatel the rumor or not? Or do we go with the rumor and try to sort of follow through on it, which is terrible, but maybe we have to do that
before this,
to satisfy people's perception.
Before we actually do Tate, let's see if we can mevatel the rumor first, right?
No, that's not the way the Gemara is framing it. The way the Gemara is framing it is, what's our general approach? We try to be mevatel the rumor, meaning there's a halachic discussion or a policy discussion. When there are rumors like this, do we try to be mevatel them, or do we think it'll just get us in trouble?
But if we've already told her to get divorced, and
let's take.
We're not trying to
that's a good point. Okay, I don't know. So it's a good question. Let's see what the Gemara says. 1 minute, but Narda's Shmuel's locale. That's where Shmuel's area of influence. And Nardai, they don't try to get rid of rumors. So therefore, what does he have to figure out? Your approach is you don't try to get rid of rumors. There is a rumor, so people have this perception. You're going to have to presumably reinforce it. It's such a deeply disturbing Gemara. I have to reinforce this at the expense of a woman getting divorced. Anyway, but the Gemara is going to switch gears pretty soon. Okay, Ella. So here's the question. The ikaru l'nesina ksiva. Now this works for the language of Bedika better. When people say, if the rumor is that he wrote a get for his wife. So the question is, well, what do people mean when they say he wrote a get? Is that a way of saying they gave a get to his wife? Okay, and then there's a rumor that he actually, they're living in sin? Or do we say, even according to the rumor, people are just gossiping, but they're not saying he's living in sin because they just said he wrote a get. They didn't say he gave a get. You got the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So Ikarul l'nesina ksiva. So the Gemara says Ikarul l'nesina ksiva. And even if they were to say say when they said they wrote a get, it could mean that he gave a get to his wife. L'ksiva gufa milo karul l'ksiva. But they wrote a get could also mean he wrote a get. Okay, so even if he wrote a get to his wife, could mean he gave a get to his wife, and that could be what people are saying. It could also be that people are just stam gossiping, and they're not saying he gave a get to his wife. Yes. That would be a problem. The miglaya milsa, the karla nesina ksiva, because if some people do say to give a get, they'll use the phrase he wrote a get. Dilmanas kamar. Maybe what they're saying is he gave, meaning okay, so now it's like a svexfeka. There's a rumor that he wrote a get, which might mean that there's a rumor that he gave a get. Got it?
Yes.
Okay. But once there's that possibility that what people are talking about is that he gave again and he's living in sin, so people might be saying or saying something which might mean that he's living in sin, teitze. If that's what you're saying, there's a really like a suffix of a rumor. I have another question. Which is like, okay, thank God, finally some end to this buying into a rumor. He says, if a couple's already married, on the basis of a rumor, we don't go ahead and make them get divorced. Meaning, like if you take a look back at the Beis Shammai of our Mishnah, like Beis Shammai says it wasn't exactly the same as a rumor, but it was a perception, a whiff that the woman might be divorced means what? We're not going to allow her to marry a Kohen, right? But it doesn't mean that because there's these perceptions out there, whatever, we're going to make her get divorced. It might mean we have some lichatchila policies, but not some policies after the fact. All right, and everybody see how that fits with Beis Shammai in the Mishnah? Okay.
So
So how could you say, even if there was a rumor that he got a get and that the Kohen is now living with his divorced wife, and even if that's what ksiva means, how could you say teitze? We don't do teitze on the basis of rumors. We just say don't get married on the basis of rumors. We don't say teitze. So Gemara says, so no, my teitze nami, teitze mishen. No. What teitze means is, if her first husband dies, the Kohen who now people think is living with his divorced wife, if he dies, she can't marry another man. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that she has to get divorced, which does not sound like it at all. But I'm glad for the conclusion.
Why don't they have any mention of evidence to ask the people themselves to testify?
Yeah, I don't know.
because they're not given that
Yeah,
opportunity.
I don't know. You mean the Kohen himself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the husband
Because
and the wife.
because the whole idea of Mevatlin and Kala means
It's a
that
rumor.
no, because the whole point of Mevatlin and Kala means that even if we know the facts and we know people are lying and they're gossiping and they're saying the wrong thing, it still might be that we can't do anything about it. We have to accept the realities of perception. I know it's a disturbing Gemara. In some ways, it's a realistic Gemara, like how hard it is to change perceptions. We know it's false. We know they're saying bad stuff, right? But what we might wind up doing is, because that's such a strong perception, is actually playing into it rather than working to dispel it, right? Because it might be more counterproductive to work to dispel it. It's a strange, it's a disturbing idea, but that's the point.
Upholds the truth in a situation like this.
Yeah, like we have to just accept it. Like sometimes, you try to fight for the truth, and the perceptions are so much against that you wind up being smeared in the process. I know it's just very, very disturbing. What can I tell you?
So what he's saying is that even
okay,
though these
but
people,
even if we're going to play into the rumors, it's only going to be at a limited degree, not the consequence if they're already married. So anyway, the Gemara says 1 minute. In Cain, 1 minute. If you don't let her marry a second guy, okay, there's still a negative consequence of what's already existing. Why? The guy will die. The first guy will die. They'll say, for the second guy, they'll say, no, you can't marry a Kohen. Why not? Well, because there's this rumor that you already divorced 10 years ago. So if once you're doing that, now we're dealing with, again, we're going to reinforce the rumors and have people live with the consequences. So here the consequence is not just to get divorced, but what's the consequence? We're going to say, you're living with your husband. We're saying that there was a rumor 10 years ago you were divorced. So now any kids you had are now chalolim, right? They're not kohanim. So Matzi Laza Barosh Rishon. The Gemara says no. Even the Misheni who the Mafkinim law, it's only the second guy we don't let her get married from. And people say they allowed her to stay with her first husband, so she couldn't really have been divorced. Okay, so therefore it must be that the whole problem is, right, that the people will know that she wasn't really divorced because she stayed with her first husband the whole time. So the people will just say, Asi Lamemer, people, how will people interpret the fact that she can't marry the second guy? No, it must be he gave her to get right before he died. Okay, so therefore we can make this halacha for the second guy, and we don't have to be worried about the consequences. Now, what's of course troublesome about this is what you have just told me is based on how you, the rabbis, are going to respond to the case, is going to shape perception, right? So because you actually are going, so if you can shape perception. So then don't have any consequences. Let her get married to the second guy. People say, oh, if the rabbis let her get married to the second guy, must be that it was actually that she was never divorced in the first place, right? So if the rabbis can shape perception, so now it sounds like that the reason that we would buy into the kol is because maybe we are concerned that the kol might actually be true. But then it gets to your question. So do a little investigation, it's very frustrating. Not that I don't understand what's being said, like in terms of what the words mean. It's like it's hard to understand the policies behind this, right? And here the Gemara acknowledges that based on how the rabbis will act, that will shape perception.
The rumor was already not that that it was.
People will change their perceptions based on the fact that we let her stay with the first guy and just didn't let her get.
I mean, there was originally a rumor that was something different, and the rabbis were not sort of buying into it, and they'll sort of change the rumor.
Right.
Okay.
I know, but it's so strange. How the rabbis act can change the perceptions, then do the right thing, guys. All right. Anyway, let's take a look. So obviously that echoed. I mean, we didn't spell it out, but that echoed Beit Shammai that said just because of a whiff of a get, we wouldn't let her get married, but we don't rule like Beit Shammai. Okay, and we're married to a Kohen. Okay, the old, we're not the later generations don't live up to the level of piety or purity of the earlier generations. This is like a Yerida Sadoros type of an idea. Doros Rishonim, or it's just a general romanticism of the past. Doros Rishonim, Beit Shammai. Doros Achronim, Rabbi Dosa. So what's the contrast? Titania. So Rabbi Shammai, we know a tiny whiff of a get, and already we're going to be so super careful. Can't marry a Kohen. Okay, it's seeing it as a good thing. I know it's a good thing that people, whatever. It's real lives are. That's the funny. Well, let's talk about that. That's the real funny part about this. Those Achronim Rabbi Dosa. What's Rabbi Dosa? Tanya Shvua Ochelet Bitruma. Diva Rabbi Dosa. If a woman is taken captive, and she's married to a Kohen, or she's then she can come back and she can go ahead and eat truma. We don't say that she was raped and that she's ushered to her husband and she can't eat truma. I'm Rabbi Dosa said Rabbi Dosa. What did this Arab do to her? Like assuming that it was an Arab that took her captive. Because he fondled her breasts to pasamina kahuna. Will she be invalidated from kahuna? So we're not going to assume even though we assume that she was completely at his mercy and that he might have taken some sexual advantage of her. We're not going to assume that he actually raped her. Now you could say how great that is, what Rabbi Dosa is doing. Rabbi Dosa is letting her stay with her husband, right? So the cost of being like extra frum religiously, this extra level of purity, we don't even want to wave a whiff of suspicion. There's real human lives that are at cost. So it is true that there is a contrast between Dosa Rishonim and Dosa Achronim. But the question is, I think most of us, we would side with Dosa Achronim here. And anyway, wasn't Beit Hillel Dosa Rishonim too?
Exactly.
So Beit Hillel also, that's exactly, we would say that's often the debate of Beit Hillel Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel says, the human concerns have to be our focus. And Beit Shammai says it's like that old. I think it's just encapsulated in that. It's in the Breishis Rabbi has a debate on Breishis Bara Elokim. Beit Shammai Amar B'Shamayim Nivru Tchila, Beit Hillel Amim Aretz Nivru Tchila. Like, where is our primary focus? In terms of our responsibility. Anyway,
the fact that that they're contrasting that Beit Shammai there's Beit Hillel impossible.
I think that the point is there's a way to say it, which is that it's not like we think we're doing anything wrong. We actually think we're doing the right thing. But the point is, like, we can still have like this romanticism about like what are we losing in the process? Well, of course we're doing the right thing. I'm focusing on the human dimension and stuff but are we losing some sense of kedusha? Are we losing some sense of tahara? So I sort of see it in a more of a romantic way, but not to say like we're doing the wrong thing, but like to feel there's a sense of loss that comes with it. Okay. Come and see. That's not like the earlier generation. Now this is a more obvious one of a contrast. They would bring in their fruit through like the main gate in order to be obligated in Maaser. But in this generation, they get them into the house through like the skylight, and they're exempt from Maaser because Maaser the grain is only chayv in Maaser when it comes into the house and when it comes in the normal way. Okay. The devil's not obligated actually until it sees the inside of the house, and with that also means bring broad in the normal way. I've destroyed it from the house. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan Omer, afilu chatzer kovat, even if it's just in the courtyard without going into the house. Once it's in your gates. Okay, Tosfos, by the way, points out that even if it's not, even if you did not have this riyat pnei habayit, you can only eat from it arai. You can only eat from it without a kviyat suda. You can feed it to your animals. You can snack on it, but you can't actually be kovea suda. Okay, moving on. A man divorced his wife, and
he actually gave her the get.
He gave her the get, and now afterward they spent the night in an inn together. Okay, maybe we don't know whether they actually shared a room or not. Okay, anyway, she doesn't need another get. We do not assume that they had sex and that they were remarried through an act of sex,
or that they had sex.
Well, Gemara will discuss those two possibilities. She needs another get. When is this true? That here, by the way, Beit Hillel is more strict. Notice. Anyway, when is this true that we're concerned that they slept together? Is if they had been married beforehand, nisui. They actually had been it wasn't just betrothal. They'd actually been married and living together beforehand. Because then it's likely that they can slip back easily more into having sex. But they agree that if they'd only been betrothed and hadn't had sex yet, so that they do not need another get. But he does not feel so comfortable with her that just after that divorce that they didn't have sex when they were married yet. So why would we assume that now that they're divorced? Well, that's true too. But this also does make it sound, as the Gemara is going to say, that the question is not. It's not that they had sex and we don't know what it means. The question is whether they had sex or not, and that's why there's a difference between Nisuin and Erusin.
I just go away with the prior mission on that about Beit Shammai being so strict. There's a whiff of anything.
I don't know. So anyway, by the way, though, there's another interesting thing that factors in here that the Yerushalmi points out, which I'll just tell you, it's very well known. If you take a look very quickly, if you go to Daf Tzadi and look at the Mishnah there, okay, this is like the famous Mishnah that everybody wants to know. Why is this the last Mishnah, not the first one? It says, Beit Shammai omrim lo yigarish adam es ishto elim kein matzah b'ervat davar. Beit Shammai says you don't get the man shouldn't divorce his wife unless she actually there's some sexual transgression. Shene'amar ki matzah b'ervat davar. Beit Hillel omrim afilu hikticha tavshilo, even if she just burnt the stew. Shene'amar ki matzah whatever. Shene'amar ki matzah b'ervat davar. That's how you put it from that passage, but okay, ki matzah b'ervat davar or something. Anyway, so the Yerushalmi says that might be why they're debating this case. Do we assume after a divorce that they might sleep together again? So according to Beit Shammai, he's presuming that you only get divorced because there was something real problem, like adultery or some concern of adultery. So we're not going to assume after a divorce that he'd want to be or whatever. They'd want to sleep together.
So why is in the Pundaki then?
I don't know. They have to go on a trip to go visiting their kids. I have no idea. But we're not assuming they're sleeping together, having sex with one another, I should say. And Beit Hillel says, no, maybe it was a small thing, and therefore maybe they're Beit Hillel, and therefore maybe they did sleep together again. Okay.
That's your Shami.
I think so, yeah. Okay, so let's go look at the Gemara. I'm a Rabbi Bar Bachan Rabbi Yochanan Machlokas b'shera'u hasheni v'la. As opposed to what we said, and the Gemara is going to point out that this does not work with the Mishnah. He's saying the debate is they actually know they had sex. Witnesses saw them have sex. And the question is, what does the sex mean? Beit Shammai says a person will have sex with, and it will be not in the context of marriage. It will just be fornication, and we won't interpret it to be for the sake of marriage. Beit Hillel says no. If we know they had sex, we assume it was for an act of marriage, and that there was a remarriage. Now, what just to make a point that's obvious, but maybe it's not obvious, is how could something be obvious but not obvious? Is that does that mean that according to Beit Hillel, anytime you see two people out in the woods somewhere and you caught them having sex, that we assume that they're married because they not supposed to be lost to be lost?
These people were married already.
These people were married already. So look at Rashi. Rashi says
It's okay with divorce.
They were divorced, but they had been married.
Right.
They had been married.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, there's a Rashi somewhere that says, yes, look at the first Rashi. We haven't read the line yet in the Gemara, but look at the first Rashi. Mali mina erzin hachazina debal. We saw them have sex. Vein adam boel et ishto biznut lebeit Hillel. So a woman that was once his wife, right, and now they're sleeping together. It's going to be in the context of marriage. But it's time you see two people having sex, you don't assume it's for the act of marriage.
But according to Beit, if there was a rumor, though.
All right.
Then,
Yes. Please. I hear where you're going, Michael. Let's not go there.
Why would
Okay.
it be in the context of marriage? I mean, imagine, you were married to this couple was married, so they have some affection.
Right.
Okay? So they decide, it just happens that they have a relationship.
Right. Just because they were married doesn't mean they want to be married again.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
they die because they got divorced because they don't want to
A
be
lot of
married
times
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not about this.
I
act,
understand, but there also is a reality that people do get divorced and remarried, and people, and because they have the relationship they want, they can move back into that relationship. But you're right. I mean, Beit Hillel isn't saying that's an interesting question as well. Is Beit Hillel saying it's a vade? Beit Hillel saying it's a suffix? We have to be concerned about it.
And we can't ask them what they want because it may be like.
Well, then there's a question about like edus and farm shabalev and all those types of issues. Okay, but all those are good questions. Let's look at the Gemara. Okay. Of a lower version, if we didn't say them have sex, then nobody would be concerned and nobody would require a get. We're not going to presume sex and presume it was for the sake of nisuin. Okay, so let's see if that works in our Mishnah. Tanan. They agree that when it's from the Eresin, she does not need to get because he doesn't feel overly comfortable with her. But the Gemara says, 1 minute. If we saw them have sex, would I care if before it was betrothed or before it was nisuin? And what does that have to do with libo gaspa? Right? And we know they had sex. The only question was it for the sake of
libo gaspa?
Right. What was it for the what purpose was it for? You're right. The Mishnah has to be they didn't see them have sex. The whole question in the Mishnah is whether they had sex. And that's why there's a difference between Eresin and Nisuin. Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar Ki Aitana. Rabbi Yochanan is going like a different version of this debate. The Tanya we turn to the Brisa. Amar Shimon Lezer, Lo Nechlechu Beit Shammai Beit Hillel Shelo Ruah Sheni Vala. Yes, the Mishnah sounds like the debate is when we did not see that they had sex. But he says, no. If you didn't see they have sex, everybody agrees she is not married. We are not concerned with that. You don't need a second get. What was the debate? They saw she had sex. In that case, that a person, even with his wife, whatever, we're not going to assume that it's for the sake of marriage. They say, with his wife, a woman who used to be his wife, we're going to assume he does not want this to be an act of fornication, and it's done for the sake of marriage. So that's two versions of the debate. Now the Gemara says like this: according to our Mishnah, they didn't see them have sex. What's the debate about? Because according to that Mishnah, maybe if they did see them have sex, everybody would agree she would be considered married. So what's the question if they didn't see her? So the question is, there are witnesses that they went into seclusion, but they're not witnesses that they had sex. But Shammai says we don't say that those people who are witnesses to the seclusion are also witnesses to sex. We don't interpret seclusion as sex. So all they saw was seclusion. No, the same people that are witnesses to the seclusion, they are implicitly witnesses to the act of sex. And therefore, since they're witnessing an act of sex, if you fill in the gaps, so therefore they saw that, and that's presumed to be for the sake of Nisuin. But they agree that if they were only in a room together after Erusin, after a divorce, after Erusin, they don't need to get. The key with Ainli Bogaspa, since he doesn't feel so comfortable, then nobody presumes that everybody agrees we cannot presume they've had sex. All right. Did Rabbi Yochanan say this? We rule like a Stam Mishnah. So how did Rabbi Yochanan say that when they didn't have sex, everybody agrees it's not a problem, right? Rabbi Yochanan said they're only debating when they had sex. He's going like the Bryce's version, but we have another statement that Rabbi Yochanan always goes by the Mishnah. So, right, our Mishnah, the version is that they're debating when they just saw them go into a room together. The Bryce says no, that's not a problem. The problem is when they saw them have sex. And Rabbi Yochanan goes by the Bryce. But don't we know that Rabbi Yochanan always says we rule like the Mishnah?
There's a lot of different versions of different things out here.
Well, that's true. So the Gemara, it's a good point. So the Gemara says, Trey Amorai. So the Gemara says, Amorai Ninu Rabbi Yochanan. And there's a debate of Amoraim. The Amora that says that Rabbi Yochanan is endorsing the Breita here does not buy into the idea that Rabbi Yochanan always goes by a Stam Mishnah. Okay, which is an interesting point, which the Gemara says elsewhere, right? If you believe Rabbi Yochanan always goes by a Stam Mishnah, that's going to limit, force us to strike out a number of statements of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara almost always winds up saying that when Rabbi Yochanan is quoted saying something against the Mishnah, that version who's quoting Rabbi Yochanan saying that does not believe that Rabbi Yochanan says we always have to go like a Mishnah. Okay. Let's take a look now at the next Mishnah. So that's a very important discussion of Eidei Yichud Eidei Bia, which has other implications as well. I'll give you just one other. A couple did not have a good kiddushin. They're married in secular law. Okay, maybe they didn't have a kiddushin at all. Do we go by common law marriage? Do we feel if they're living together and as husband and wife and everybody sees them, do we interpret that as if it's an act of Bia and an act of kiddushin? Right? When do we say Eidei Yichud Eidei Bia and we things are interpreted as now they're married?
What do we say that?
It's a machlokes opposed to them, actually. Part of the question there also is if it was a bad kiddushin, maybe not, because then we assume it's all framed by the initial bad kiddushin. If it was no kiddushin, maybe there's more of a reason to say
you're trying to have a kiddushin.
Yeah, I know, but you don't think you need to. There's a lot of interesting questions about that. Okay, let's take a look at the Mishnah. Kinsa beget kireach. If he divorced his wife with a bald get. Now, what's a get kireach? So basically, they established for a Kohen who was writing a get for his wife, because Kohanim would sometimes divorce their wives a little bit impetuously, and maybe not, or even regardless, the consequences would be much greater because they couldn't remarry them after they divorced them. They wanted to slow the Kohanim down, so they made the act of writing a get for a Kohen a very intricate, laborious procedure. The way they would write it is you would basically have a piece of paper. I think that's my drawing abilities right now.
Yes.
You'd have a piece of paper. You'd write a few lines, and then you would fold it over. So now it would look like this. You'd have, you'd sort of, you'd fold it over, okay? and
You're
then
ready to show the piece of paper.
then you'd write a few more lines, and then you would fold it onto the blank. So the next part would look like this, right? And the writing would be here. You see, and it's like folded over, and then you keep on doing it. So by the end, and now each time that you would fold
You
it,
tie it.
you would tie it. So that by the end of it, what you would do is you would have a get that would sort of look, like this, right?
A lot of bows.
Like that, right? And each of these would be tied, and the writing would be on one side of each of these. And then what you would do is on the outside of each of those things, you would have signatures. You would have a signature. So a witness would sign here, and a witness would sign here, right? And the witness would sign like on
You
the
don't
back
need
side
to
of the
sign
paper.
on every fold, right?
Yes, you do. That's what a get kirech is. A get kirech is that they did not sign on all the folds, that there's a fold left blank. Now, the minimum the rabbis required here is 3 folds and 3 signatures, as opposed to a normal get that only requires 2. But if you went ahead and made 10 folds, maybe they decided that that'll slow them down even more. Then you need signatures on each one of the folds. Okay. Now Rashi explains. We'll take a read. We'll see the Gemara says why they required that. Okay. So
it's
let's
actually
say
puzzle. So even if they sign at the very last fold, which is like everything.
Yeah.
So it's puzzle they didn't sign on the first 10 or whatever it is.
Right.
However many you did.
Yes, that's what the Mishnah is going to say. So let's take a look. Kinsa beget kereah. So a man married her, and he was divorced from her first husband with a get with a bald spot. One of those folds had not been signed. Back to that. All the negative consequences. Okay, so she really is migureshet, but the rabbis treat her as not migureshet, so it has all those negative consequences.
How would they even find? You'd have to undo all the seals.
No, because the signature is visible, right?
It's like an accordion.
Yeah, it's like an accordion. Exactly.
Right.
Here, give me that piece of paper.
No, I got it.
All right.
Yeah, but it's good.
I might as well do it.
Okay.
Right, and then you fold.
Right.
Now this part is written, this part is blank.
Right.
Okay, right. Anyway,
We're gonna sign. You gotta sign.
right.
Right. No,
Okay, and then you sign here,
Right.
and then you do some more writing, and then you do it like that. Right, exactly, like an accordion, right? And then you make a knot, and then you sign
Yeah.
here. So each section is signed.
So what's blank? Is one without a signature?
Is that one of these folds doesn't have a signature? Okay. All right. Okay. Now get kereach hakol mashlimim alav. You've been honest. Now, if you have 2 or 3, we'll see in the Gemara. Let's say 3 kosher signatures, which was the minimum, and you just have a blank spot because you did 10 folds. Then Benana says, fine, you get puzzle-aided to sign the other folds. Okay, so it's very funny, right? The other folds you can get puzzle-aided to fill in, and nevertheless. Right, or maybe it's only one is one blank. We'll see if it's more than one blank later. And nevertheless, if it's not filled in, it's treated as a puzzle get. Right?
Wait, how can you sign something you can't see? In other words, it's sealed now, right?
What?
They signed before.
Oh, you mean so that's an interesting question that Rashi and Tosfos discuss, which is when you're filling it in with these puzzle adim, were they there at the event, or did they only come later? But so they might. But even if they were there at the event, they can't testify. They're puzzle adim. Right. So the point is that this is really just to satisfy some rabbinic requirement that all the folds be signed. They're not doing an active edus. They're puzzle adim. They might even have come later. That's debated by Rashi and Tosfos. Okay, and nevertheless, even though they're not doing an active edus, right? If it's not done, it's a puzzle get, and all these negative consequences.
This is only after a first kosher signature, right? Because he's the first one.
Well, the Gemara will discuss. Well, the Gemara will discuss. You need, let's say, we'll see all that in the Gemara, right? Obviously, you need a minimum amount of kosher signatures. No. The only people that can sign are people that could be kosher witnesses elsewhere. They could be relatives. Because a relative could be kosher in another situation if he wasn't related to the people that, to the husband or the wife, right? But if somebody is puzzled in other situations, like they're a slave or they're a ganav, okay, a goslin, right? Then they could not fill in the blank, okay? If there are more folds than there are signatures, right? Now the first big question is, why is it a problem? If you have 3 kosher signatures and you can even fill the blanks with bad signatures, why is it a problem? So my time at the get kireach, what's the reason? So the Gemara says, Gzeira mishum kulcha. We're afraid that if you made 10 folds, right, then the reason if you made 10 folds, that shows that you had 10 witnesses ready to sign. And therefore, if you have fewer than 10 witnesses signed, we're afraid that that'll lead to koshering the get which said everybody sign, and you didn't have everybody sign. Now, of course, if we really believe you might have said everybody sign, then the other witnesses would have to be kosher ones, right? Because so clearly that we allow there to be a puzzle signature means we're not really concerned that this case you said everyone signed. We're just afraid that it looks like you did, or it will be perceived of you did, so we can't leave any blank spaces. So again, it's pretty amazing because of this very secondary concern. The get is still treated as so puzzle with all these negative consequences. Again, we'll assume that this is according to Rabbi Meir.
Just understand, even if you had 10 signatures on the first fold,
right?
Still think that
No. You only have one signature per fold.
Let's say you had 10 signatures. You didn't have the other one.
I don't know.
But
But there's that's a good question. I don't know if that. I don't know what the halacha is. Okay, so let's take a look. Hold on, we just want to see Tosos. 1 minute. Yeah, so Tosos doesn't like that. Tosos says, Tosos is a little bit bothered that if there really was a concern about Pekulchem, why are we allowing puzzle witnesses to sign? Okay, he doesn't really. Okay, let's take a look now at the Gemara. Get kirecha kol mashlim alav. You can get puzzle witnesses to fill in the blank. Rabbi Akiva, Evid my time alone. Why does Rabbi Akiva not allow a slave to sign? So people will say, you had a slave sign on this. Clearly, slaves are kosher le'edus because he put a signature on his get. So karav nam yasleim are kosher le'edus. So why does he allow a relative to sign? People say, a relative sign. We see that relatives can be aided. So the Gemara says, Ella Evid hainu taima. Now, here's why we don't let an Evid sign. People know Avadim can't sign, but they'll say, oh, did you see the Evid sign? How did that happen? I thought Avadim can't sign. Oh, must be he was freed. It must be he's no longer an Evid. So then so that's going to be a problem, right? They'll marry a free woman. So if that's true, Gazlin, the Bar Yosenu Liskasher. So why do we let a Gazlin sign? Gazlin's allowed to get married, right? If the whole problem is that people are going to assume that the Evid was freed, why don't we let a Gazlin sign? It can only be a relative who could testify in all other situations. Karav in a relative, yes. Gazlin, no, not a Gazlin. I'll tell you. Because if they see an Evid sign, they'll say, it could be he signed and he was an Evid, must be he was freed. So what will they say if they see a Gazlin sign? It could be he signed if he was a Gazlin, it must be he did tshuva. Gazlin nami, will name a tshuva of it. And why is that a problem? Because they'll think he did tshuva and they'll trust him and they'll have him sign other things. So Karav Michael Amema. So what are people going to say? Oh, relative sign must be what? He's not his brother. So Karav Koyama Yadi to Karav, fine. So that's Rabbi Akiva. In principle, you could have Psulim sign, but it confuses people and it sends mixed messages. Karav doesn't send mixed messages. Okay, I'm Reb Zera, I'm a Rabbi Bar Shiota, I'm a Rabbi Bar Shiota, I'm a Rabbi Amnuna Saba, I'm a Rabbi Bar Ava. Okay, get Kereach, Sharav Shiva, if you had 7 folds, the 8 of Shisha had 6 witnesses, Shisha Ved of Chamisha, Chamisha Ved of Arba, Arba Ved of Shlosha, Ad Kamacholos Benanas Rabbi Akiva. The question if you can have what type of psulim can sign is until you have
only one.
Until you have
a difference of 1.
Well, no. Yes, but that's not the point. We're going to get back to that too. Right now, there's only 1 bald spot, but in addition to only being 1 bald spot, you have 3 kosher signatures, right? And the minimum of a get kereach that the rabbis demanded were 3 folds and 3 signatures. So if you have the minimum that was demanded by the rabbi, 3 kosher signatures, then we can debate what you can fill in with the 4th, okay, with the blanks, okay? But but if you had 3 folds and 2 witnesses, so you didn't even have the minimum that the rabbis demanded, you could only have a relative sign. Now, of course, you and I should jump up and say, what? If you need the first 3, if it's the basic 3, you should need to get a kosher witness to sign, right? Okay, so that's what the Gemara is going to say. I'm like Reb Zera, Rabbi Bar Shiota. So Reb Zera said to Rabbi Bar Shiota, now notice, Reb Zera taught this teaching in the name of Rabbi Bar Shiota. So he went to the rabbi who taught him this teaching, and he said back to him, he said, Michti, 3 witnesses on a folded get is like a normal 2 witnesses on a simple get. So on a flat get. So Mahasam Karvlo, the same way you wouldn't have a relative in the 2 witnesses, if it's the 3 basic witness, signatures, witnesses, how can you allow a relative? We need 3 as the minimum. So Amar Lei, he said to him, you know what? I also had that problem. The She'il Taylor Rav Amnuna. Now, if you looked at the way it was said, Rav Zera said in the name of Rabbi Bar Shiota, who said in the name of Rav Amnuna. So he said, you know what? I asked the person who taught me this halacha that question. For Rav Amnuna, now Rav Amnuna said it in the name of Rav Barava. And he also didn't know. So he asked his teacher, Rav Nuna, Rav Barava. Amar Lei, Rav Barava said, you know what? Which is like, okay, you know, we could have figured that out too. Yeah, it's true. The rabbis required 3. But biblically, you only require 2. But still, if the rabbis required 3 and they defined this as the signatures of the get, how do they allow somebody who's a relative to sign? Tanya Nami Hachi, we thought similarly, let's just read this line. Get Kirech Sharav Shiva Vedav Shisha, Shisha Vedav Chamisha, Chamisha Vedav Arba, Arba Vedav Shlosha, Ad Kamachos Benan Rabbi Akiva, Hishlim Alav Evid. This is the debate of if it's anything where you have 3 full signatures, that if it's a slave, then not as a Vlad Kasher, that's okay. At least for the Evid, Rabbi Akiva, Vlad Mamzer. Again, we're back to the Vlad Mamzer. Aval, so that's their debate. Sharav Shlosha Vedav Shnayim, 3 folds and 2 witnesses. Then everybody agrees you can't have an Eved or a Goslin. The most you could get away with is a relative. But again, we're allowing a relative for one of the 3. So now let's just read about the response to that.
Because they might be favoritism. You were questioning whether we can use a relative or not.
No, we can.
We can. Okay.
Yeah. Rav Yosef Masni Kasher. Rav Yosef says no. You cannot say for the basic 3 that one of them can be a relative. One of them, when you're down to the basic 3, everybody agrees that the 3rd signature has to be somebody who's kosher lahaid. Okay, somebody who's a complete normal kosher aid. Hatani Karav, what do you mean? It says that for the 3rd one, we can have a relative. I'm a papa tani kosher. Don't bother me about that. Cross out that line. It should say kosher. Okay, so bottom line is, the Gemara says for the basic 3, okay, everybody agrees there are higher standards, but the chiddush is that we're willing to consider that one of those 3 could be a relative. But obviously, Gemara really is bothered by that, rightfully so, and in the end is pushing to say, no. For the basic 3, they all have to be kosher edim. The debate is when there are blank spots that are left beyond the 3. And tomorrow we'll look at this question about that Michael was asking about what if it's more than one blank spot, other types of questions, and so on. So all of that will be finished tomorrow.
So a relative.
Look at that, we caught up.
A relative cannot be a valid